Right, episode number 327. When can I retire? I can't wait to talk to you guys about this one because I know there are so many of you out there right now saying, I am ready, I'm done, I'm ready to be retired. Before we get into the show, this verse that we started with, I've really been thinking a lot about that word discernment. It's one of the reasons I like this verse so much, but I was reminded as I read this morning that it starts with that your love may abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight, so that you may be able to discern what is best and may be pure and blameless for the day of Christ. Anyways, as we get into the show today, what is best for retirement? I was asked to come speak at one of the kids' schools recently, and this was a first grade class. They teach this early on. My daughter reminded me of it, though. And every year they remind the kids there's a difference between what they call a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. And they teach the kids from an early age that you want to adopt a growth mindset, that you don't want to get stuck in thinking that where you think you know everything. That's when you run into trouble, typically, is when you decide that there's nothing more to learn, you've got it all figured out, and you're good to go. And so we always want to be adopting a growth mindset, and that's one of the reasons I'm excited about this particular show, because we're going to be talking about some new research that's being done, an article that I read recently, a podcast that I listened to recently, and just some tools for you to be thinking about. And as you do, go into it with this growth mindset, this idea that there's more to learn. When I was, probably about 11 years old, I have my little brother and my friend decided that they were going to do a spaghetti cook-off to see who could make the best spaghetti sauce. And they're both characters. They're both a lot of fun. But I remember this friend of mine that was over visiting our house. He decided that he was going to add cayenne pepper and cinnamon to his spaghetti sauce. And, I'm reminded that whenever you make anything, you want to put the right ingredients in and keep the wrong ingredients out. And although it was creative, he was trying to do his best to come up with an idea. I can tell you, none of us enjoyed the cinnamon or the cayenne pepper in the spaghetti sauce. This friend of mine lost to my brother. My brother loves to cook. That's something that he's always been really blessed with, is this just natural ability to cook excellent food. Simple recipe. Keep the good things in and keep the bad things out. That's what we're going to be talking about today, is when can I retire, and what are the things that you want to be including in a good retirement? One of the things you want to be keeping out as you start to build that retirement. So I thought we'd start this particular show with trying to be able to answer the question of can I retire? And there's really two basic formulas, very simple formulas. You can do this on a napkin sitting at your dinner table. The first one is you take and you add up all of the liquid investments that you have. So your IRAs, your 401ks, your Roth, your TSP, your non-qualified accounts, your bank accounts, your brokerage accounts, just liquid money that you can access. Take it all, add it all up, and then multiply it by 4%. And so, for example, let's say all of those different accounts, if that adds up to $1 million and you multiply it by 4%, it would tell you that you could take $40,000 per year out of a portfolio. And that idea was originally developed by William Bengen in the 1990s in what he called the safe max, the safe amount that you could take from a portfolio without depleting it down to zero in a worst case scenario. I think that's an important thing to understand, is the 4% was a worst case scenario based on historical data. That would be the first rule of thumb. So you take your $1 million, you multiply it by 4%, and you say, okay, $40,000 is how much I could spend. And it's so simple, but at least it gives you a starting point. $40,000 really doesn't mean anything to you unless you know how much money you need in order to be able to maintain your standard of living. So the other very simple formula, it's a little bit more complex because it requires you to have a little bit more data. The first formula is only a percentage of your liquid investable assets. The other way that you can do this formula is you understand what your budget is, how much your annual spending is, and then you multiply that number by 25. If you said, okay, I need $40,000 a year from portfolio withdrawals to sustain my lifestyle, you would take 40,000, multiply it by 25, and it would tell you that you need $1 million. So both of these ideas relate to the 4% withdrawal rule, this safe max, the most you would want to take out of an investment portfolio based on historical data without depleting the portfolio down to zero. One is based just on this percentage of value of your accounts. The other one is a multiple of your spending. And the reason that I like the second one so much more is because what happens for so many of us, we start out in life, and I talk to a lot of people that have been very successful in their finances, and they will tell me, Jason, when we were starting out, boy, we had a really good budget. We did envelope budgeting, and we knew exactly where every penny was going. And when you're starting out in life, that kind of has to happen. I mean, if you're going to be a good steward of your resources, you really need to tell every dollar where to go. But what happens over time is your income starts going up. You've developed this muscle, this discipline. And so you stop budgeting, and all you recognize is that at the end of every month, you end up with more income than you do expenses. So by the time you get to age 60 and you're ready to retire, you really don't know how much money you're spending anymore. It's just you've got good income coming in, and it seems like you're spending less and you're still saving for retirement. But it gets to be really dangerous if you don't understand what that spending number is, because as soon as you give up that ability to earn wages, as soon as you decide, okay, I'm just going to live based on, what I've saved, boy, you have got to understand that number if you want to head into retirement with a great deal of confidence. Because you could look at the $40,000 a year, 4% of $1 million, and say, well, that seems like enough. And then let's say you're going to have $2,500 a month of Social Security, or we'll call that $30,000 a year. So you have $40,000 of withdrawals from a portfolio, $30,000 a year of Social Security income, it's $70,000. And you're like, boy, that seems like a lot of money. But the reality is, if you don't know how much you're spending, if you really haven't figured that out, then you're going to go into retirement and that may not be enough. And I just talked to a gentleman last week, and he's in a position where he gets to meet with a lot of people that are going into this retirement transition. And he said, Jason, I meet with these guys. They decide that they're going to retire early. Next thing I know, 6 months, 9 months later, they're coming back to work because they really didn't understand their spending. They thought that they were going to be able to retire, but they didn't factor in that they still have a car payment. They still have a mortgage. They still want to travel. They still want to go fishing. They want to do stuff with the grandkids. All this stuff costs money. And so they retire too early only to have to go back to work. And that's what we want to avoid doing. When you retire, we want this to be a one-time deal. Unless, of course, your employer comes back to you with an offer that's so good that you just can't pass it up. Because we see that happen too. Many of you have a tremendous amount of knowledge that is going to be incredibly missed in the workforce. And so don't be surprised one bit if when you decide to retire, your employer comes back and says, please just give us one more year. We'll pay you anything you want, give you all the flexibility you want. Just stick around one more year. This is an exciting time. It can be really unsettling, and not just because this is an unsettling time. We've got a global pandemic. Which is unnerving. People working from home, having to wear a mask everywhere you go. It's kind of a scary time. You turn on the news at night, it's bad news. And then we've got a presidential election around the corner, and we've got the president who contracts coronavirus. Boy, there's just a lot of stuff out there that's happening that's, can be kind of scary. I was talking to some folks earlier today, and we were trying to do some tax planning. It's a little bit unsettling right now to do some tax planning because we know that what the rules are today, but depending on public policy risk, depending on who wins the election, could determine, how taxes are going to change in the future. You've got one candidate saying he wants to keep taxes low and reduce them further, and you've got another candidate says he wants to get rid of these all-time low tax rates and see taxes go up right at the end of the year, and thinking, boy, do we need to capture this opportunity from a tax standpoint? So the reason that I wanted to do this show today was in the October 2020 Financial Advisor magazine. The cover article, the title is Choosing the Highest Safe Withdrawal Rate at Retirement, a new article published by William Bengen. And then shortly after that, I listened to a podcast where William Bengen was being interviewed by Michael Kitces.